Welcome to the Root of Power podcast, where I teach you how to step into your power, find alignment, and create a life that you love using holistic methods, interviews with industry leaders, and inspiring stories from people who know that true freedom is found within. I'm your host and health and wellness bestie, Amanda Chills, and I'm so proud of you for choosing to step into the root of your power. All right, podcast fam, I have got Alanna today, and y'all, she is such a maternal, grounded energy, and she really suffered a loss that I would not wish on anyone, which you're going to hear about. She lost her infant about 10 years ago, and through the process learned to honor her grief and to really move through it so that she can forever carry him with her. And she started an organization to support other parents who are dealing with the same loss. And she is so powerful, guys. So wait until you hear this episode and give us your thoughts. What did you like? And what really resonated with you? And if you are in need of support, as always, reach out via the website or Instagram, livemyhappyhealth.com, or Instagram is at Amanda_Chills. If you are going through the website, you will see that I have 3 steps to build healthy habits that will change your life. But even more importantly, you can do anything you want. It is just a practice. So on to Alanna. Y'all, her story is so powerful, and I am so excited that she graced us and honored us to share it with us. So here we go. Okay, podcast fam, we are here with Alanna Knobben, who
Hello.
is so grounded, is going to tell you this story about how she came to be where she's doing and helping moms and dads who lose a child or a pregnancy or an infant, which all are children. She has this wonderful community that she's working with. She wrote a book and collaborated with this wonderful artist who is like a motherhood artist who's just stunning work. So welcome. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me. It's amazing to work with you. I love your energy, and I'm so excited to talk today and share a little bit more about what we're doing at Carry With Me. So thank you.
Yes. And it's something, I love that you're doing this work because it's something a lot of parents feel shame about, and a lot of people don't know how to sit with loss, right? So they'll bring it up and people are uncomfortable, and then they feel bad because people are uncomfortable and people don't know what to say. And so if you'll tell us about you and then how you got into this kind of work.
Sure, absolutely. Our story started just over 10 years ago in this space, or my story. And we were expecting our second son. And we didn't know what it was going to be at the time. Going into a healthy pregnancy, all the rest of it. And had a beautiful baby boy, was kind of nervous of how when you have a first child and you're falling in love, and then it's like, how am I possibly going to love somebody as much as this? And then you fall in love, and I always describe it as like these little hearts that grow inside of you. And so we have our heart that is beating and growing, and how I kind of visualize it, or the symbol of it to me, is like these little hearts grow inside of our hearts, and for the ones that we love. And so fell in love with this beautiful little boy. We had a few days in the hospital. It was a ridiculous cold winter Canadian storm when he was born in November. And it literally went to the point of my husband was coming into the room with his coat on and the car seat in hand. We were going to leave the hospital, and the nurse heard a murmur. And so she said, it's really, yes, a heart murmur. And she said, it's really common. This happens all the time, but let's just get the doc in to check you out before you go and we release you. Snowball effect, and your world starts to slowly crumble to, more specialists looking at him, not sure what was going on, more tests being done, moving into the NICU at the hospital that we were at. And at this point, I'm like frustrated, scared, not super fearful, because think we all feel invincible on some level, and like
Mm.
bad things can't happen to us until they do.
Mhm.
And then, fast forward a couple days and we get delivered the news that a doctor we've never met before and sits me down in the room and says, I'm sorry, Mama, but your boy is very sick and he's never coming home. And
Oof.
it's like your entire being and world falls apart, right?
Right. Yeah.
From there, we moved to a children's hospital, specialized hospital in our city, and he lived out the next 10 days of his life there and passed away in our arms at 2 weeks old. So um, changes your life forever. That pain
Yeah.
stays with you forever, but so does the love. And that's
Mm.
really something that I'm on a mission to share and to help parents navigate through loss. And so over the years, it kind of happened naturally and
Mhm.
organically, in that people, I've had people literally come to my house and show up at the front door and just kind of fall into my arms crying, who
Wow.
are going through loss or their loved
Yeah.
ones going through loss. Or in my previous career, I worked in the energy sector for over 15 years
Mm.
and would have people
Yes.
coming into my office or booking a coffee meeting with me and sharing that they lost a child 30 years ago, or their best friend was just
Wow.
going through a miscarriage, and how could they show up for them. And so it started kind of in these informal
Mhm.
roles.
So it really
um,
started like weaving, like that theme started weaving itself into your life.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah. And then I didn't sit down to write in a healing awareness, if you will, right? We all process in different ways. And, I think people really have to listen to what works for them, whatever trauma,
Mhm.
whatever grief, whatever challenge you're going through, right?
Yeah.
It's like really listening to what works for you and what is helpful for you.
Mhm.
And I had sat down and I like to write and paint and get creative and kind of get,
Mhm.
those messy thoughts out, move them out of my body.
Okay.
And so in writing, one of the things that kept coming up was, I will carry you with me. I'll carry you forever. I'll carry you. And the story came to be. And so it took years to come and bring out into the world.
Mm.
But it started with a storybook. And from the second I said out loud, I wanted to do this storybook, I knew I wanted so much more than the book, that I
Yeah.
started an online community
Mhm.
where we can connect with other parents going through loss and support people who are showing up every day
Mhm.
incredibly to serve and support and walk us through that darkness.
Yeah.
Um, and then it kind of just evolved from there into more formal roles on different boards and charities and all sorts of things. So really dedicated to this space.
Mm. How did it affect your marriage?
Relationships are a big one,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, it's
Because
funny
I'm sure
because
you go ahead. Well, I was going to say, I'm sure you work with some people who their relationship, I don't want to say can handle it or can't handle it, like, but it can very much like be a catalyst for a relationship to end. So
absolutely,
yeah, how did you guys navigate it? And then what are you seeing?
yeah. So not being a professional on that, I totally can share our story and some of the things that I share
Yeah.
in our program around conflict and partnership. But an interesting note was, I remember one of my best friends was working at the children's hospital at the time when we were there with Marshall.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was kind of, seeing it all go down, and
Mm-hmm.
had known us since I was young. And I remember her saying to me when he passed away, like, you guys are going to get through this. And I don't know how, but you need to be strong together, because
Yeah.
so many marriages, this is the end and you can't
Mm-hmm.
lose each other now. And I remember that just like smack hitting me in the face at the time and being
Yeah.
like, oh my God, right?
Mm-hmm.
As time went on and looking back, so I have the benefit of hindsight now. And what I can
Right.
share is, like, not a shocker, communication is
Mm-hmm.
key. Like any relationship in life, the more I
Yeah.
studied the conflict that we have had around it, we processed in very different ways, very,
Mm-hmm.
very different ways. I just shared a little bit about how I'm expressive and kind of
Mm-hmm.
an emotional empath, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband is more of an internal thinker, right?
Okay.
And it took years for us to come to a place where he could say, I process out in nature. when I
Yeah.
need to get away, when I go on a fishing trip or I go hiking or I do
Mm.
whatever on my own, I
Yeah.
don't need to talk about it. I need
Yeah.
to just be in nature.
Yeah.
For me, I needed to talk about it, right?
I was going to say that's
So
very hard when your styles are different.
it is. And it's quite common, right? And it's really not
Yes.
gender based. The more research I do on it about intuitive and instrumental and all these
Mhm.
different types of ways that we process, it's really learning to sit with how you do it for
Mhm.
yourself and give space for how other
Yep.
people do it for them.
I was
And
just thinking holding space while you said that. Yep.
yeah, and would you say in your experience, it's like the bridge that I see is communication, that
Yes.
that becomes the bridge. It's like,
Yeah.
what can I do? What am I able how am I able to show up? I can
Mhm.
communicate that, and then I can also communicate what I need or what is not
Mhm.
helpful.
I think communication and space. So what I see a lot of people struggle with, especially if you have different processing styles, is if one partner is very verbal and the other partner very is not. Often the verbal one will have so much trouble not having their partner talk to them, and so it's like I need to talk, but I understand that you don't. And then it's like, how do you figure out how those things mesh? Because if one person's a talker, they're going to want to talk to their partner. But if the other partner's an internal, that stresses them out. So it's like
Yeah,
figuring out how to navigate those things. So it's definitely communicating, but then also allowing your partner the full freedom, as long as they're doing the work, to do the work in their own way. And what I see is it tends to be harder for the verbal one to sit with that and to be like, you're not talking to me. It's like, they're not
it's
going
really
to.
hard to understand. It's really hard
Yeah.
to understand. One thing I do really want to make sure I share is that,
Mhm.
um, and I talk about this a lot, but the term "fix me," because this is
Mm.
language I wish I would have had 10 years ago. It could have
Yeah.
saved
Talk
us a
about it.
lot of troubles. And so this came up in a very heated discussion, I'll say. We were supposed to be going out for a date night one night, get a break. The
Mhm.
the children are with the grandparents babysitting, and something triggered me. I don't even remember what it was, and I
Mhm.
just teared up and started crying. And we're driving out to dinner, and my husband's just like, what now, right? Like, why are you always
Yeah.
crying? Like, what's going on, right? And I'm
Yeah.
talking, this is like 8 years out. This isn't
Yeah.
fresh off and so it just immediately triggered both of us into this like
Mhm.
heated conversation.
Yeah.
And he, in his frustration, which then, have learned since, just kind of shouted out at me, I can't fix you. I can't fix you. I'm
Mm.
not going to fix you
Yeah.
anymore. And I shouted back. I was like, I never needed you to fix me. I never wanted you to fix me. I
Right.
just want you to stand by my side while I work on
Right.
myself.
Right.
And it was like both of us were like, like,
Yeah.
why didn't we say that so long ago?
I don't need you to fix me. I just need you to sit with me. Yeah.
Yeah, like I never, this whole time, and we've talked about it at length since, right?
Mhm.
And working in this space now, got the opportunity to kind of like get a bit more of his perspective on it,
Mhm.
which was amazing. But hearing that the whole time he shared, he felt like he was responsible to fix me. So
Yeah.
he kind of like packed his grief aside
Right.
and really felt it in a different, he loved our son, he still loves our son,
Mhm.
but felt it in a more like nature way, right?
Yeah.
Like saw that he was sick and ill, there was no fix for our son,
Yeah.
and this is how life works, and now we
Mhm.
deal with that, right?
Okay.
Mine was more like this kind of
Yeah, it
like
was more
roller
like
coaster
spaghetti.
crazy, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I think that is just an interesting language of like the fix
Yeah.
piece, right? No one can ever fix anyone else. We don't
Right.
even really fix ourselves. We develop and we evolve.
Is that so? Like, that sounds like something that you're carrying into your community, is all these different, because part of the thing about this kind of grief and loss is it feels so isolating.
Hmm.
Like, trauma
Huge.
cuts you off from the rest of the world, because if you don't know people who have personally experienced it, you feel so alone. And the beautiful thing about a community is not only can other people say me too? But you have all these different perspectives that people can link with and say, oh, I always thought that I dealt with it this way, but now that I have this knowledge, maybe I really deal with it this way. Oh, someone else has been through it. They're part of my roadmap now.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love
Isolation is a huge thing, and it's kind of a funny one because um, I think in the beginning we're isolating ourselves, right? And this is like a huge theme on its own. We won't like dig to the bottom of today, but in the book and in the program and in the community, we talk about isolation a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I describe it as a snow globe of reality,
Mm.
and that I felt like my life was like a snow globe, and that all the pieces were glued down, and my world was just shaking, and I was the only piece in the world not glued down. I was just tossing and turning
Yeah.
and couldn't plant my feet back on the ground. And at the same time that there was a dome pushing down on me, like I felt stuck.
Yeah.
And so that changes over time. And we talk about that shift, and I get people to reflect on, how is that changing over time? What things are helping you ground and get your feet back on the ground?
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen overnight, but there's this subtle awareness when we reflect. When does the dome start to lighten? When does it start to like open up, right? And I can't put my finger on exactly when, but I can tell you what it felt like inside of the dome, and I can tell you what it felt like when that glass dissipated, right?
I love that visual.
Thank you. Yeah,
that's a great visual.
Yeah, and I think it's just relevant in the isolation piece of like everything's changed, but nothing, like your entire life and being has changed, but everything looks the same. Your bed looks the same, your house looks the same, the street looks the same, but nothing feels the same. And so, I think that natural isolation when we've been through trauma, that the body just needs that pause or that gap to kind of like be in that numbness and that kind of shock. And then when you start to drift out of that and you start to step into kind of like a bit more the fog rising and, present moment, then the isolation flips almost to being isolated from society because people don't know what to do with you. They don't know how to handle you anymore.
Right. Yeah. Can you share what that was like? So what can people do if someone has experienced a loss like this or another kind of loss? And I feel like we're going to have a general theme of like holding space, but a lot of people don't really know what that means. And they don't know how to do it. Like that's a pretty specific skill set. So how can people show up for people in their life who are going through some hard shit?
Yeah. I guess when I would describe it, I would think of holding space as like settling into the uncomfortable, allowing silence to occur, which is really hard for me. Like just as a person, I'm a chatterbox.
It's hard for most people.
Perhaps, you resonate with that, right? Like an energy that is hard to just sit in silence.
So I'm not fair because I'm a therapist. So I do that all the time. I'm the outlier, but I have people who don't do this kind of work for a living. Everyone is uncomfortable with silence. Like it's a thing. So yeah, most people are like, I don't know what to say. I'm uncomfortable and I have to talk so that it's less uncomfortable, which is kind of the opposite of holding space, like you're saying. So you're settling. I love that you say settling into discomfort and not just sitting there like knees up, like, like you gotta dig into it. Yeah.
Sadly for me, I was the unsettled until I went through something. And I think that might be the norm of humanity, right? It's like once you experience loss or trauma or grief, all of a sudden you have this like awareness of how to show up in it, right? And that's one of the blessings I feel like I've received in this experience is how to show up in pain and suffering for others.
Yeah.
So if you haven't been through something like that, I think knowing that it's okay to make mistakes, but that showing up however you authentically can
Mm-hmm.
is important, and it is so appreciated. And so what I mean in the way that you can, it's saying honor who you are too. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to walk away from yourself to be supportive of somebody
Right.
else, right?
Yes.
And so,
So good.
oh, thank you. No, it's just like it's if you aren't that person who can sit on the couch and just hold me while I cry
Mm-hmm.
or listen to the painful details of like a hospital day or whatever it may
Yeah.
be, that's okay. Not everyone has to do that.
Right.
But are you the friend that can show up and bring a meal? Are you the
Mm-hmm.
friend that can send a note 3 months later and say, hey, I'm thinking of you? Or
Yeah.
write my child's name in chalk in a sidewalk when you're playing
Yeah.
with your children one day,
That'd be sweet.
completely out of the blue, text me a picture of,
Mm-hmm.
my child's name. And that means the world, right?
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah. So if you're a doer, be a doer. If you're like a space holder, be a space holder.
yeah,
Um, just to talk about how to be a space holder, because a lot of people don't know. So like the way that I think about it and the way that I explain it to people is, do you have a pet?
no,
Alana? Okay.
no,
Have you ever had a pet?
no, no, I'm like the anomaly. Does
Fired.
a goldfish
Get off this
count?
interview. Sure. Yeah. Well, kind of.
Well,
So like
we have a fish now, like that.
fired from this interview.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, for people that have pets, I mean, fish count,
Okay.
because the point of what I'm saying is like they're comforting in part because all they do is exist with you. They don't try to fade your pain or fix it or hide it or distract it. They just,
Yes, that's so awesome. Yes.
okay, so you fish do it. I don't know how
No.
comforting fish are.
I see pets. Everybody I know has
Yeah,
pets.
okay,
So
so
I totally get it. I
so it's
totally get it.
like a cat, right? Like cats, for people that have cats, they're going to get this. Like they'll kind of follow you room to room. I call it bro time, where they're not like in your face like dogs are, but they'll sit with you and they'll just kind of hang out around you and they just exist. They're doing their thing, but they're physically present with you. When I'm teaching people to hold space, that's how I teach them. Like imagine that you are a cat and you're just physically existing with this person without trying to change them. Just, I will sit with you in this
I
space
love it.
until things are better. Because a lot of the time, like people don't need to be fixed, right? Like your
Yeah.
husband was beating his head against the wall trying to fix you, but that's not what you needed. What you need is someone to exist with you and say, like, I see your pain and it's valid. And I'm just going to hang out with you because that's important.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of time, building on that comment and that analogy is perfect. And I love that. And I hope you don't mind if I steal that.
No, please do.
Um,
Please.
yeah, it's amazing. But it's like when I was expressing those things,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't always need a dialogue back, right? Like
Right.
that could have taken pressure off to just know
Mm-hmm.
if he was just able to listen for 5 minutes or to
Mm-hmm.
like pass me a Kleenex if I'm crying in the corner
Yeah.
and just put his hand on my shoulder and say, it's going to be okay, or I'm
Yeah.
here, or like, it's tough. That's it.
Yes, yes. I love that you're saying
Mic
that
drop,
because a lot of
right?
people don't know what to say when that happens. And so something I say all the time, like in sessions, I'm just like, that's so hard.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
hard. And they're just like, yeah, that's so hard. And I'm like, you just cry. Like you just cry it out. So like for people that don't know what to say, just saying like, that's really hard, or wow. Wow, that's enough. Like, yeah.
Language is also super important when you just said that. People don't know what to say. This trigger
I
goes
have
off in
no
my
idea.
brain immediately. And what some of the things I also like to mention are letting go, and how that is never a phrase you want to hear in a bereavement
Can
or
you explain?
probably grief scenario. And so I think the term letting go for yoga or for mindfulness or like creativity
Is
is
great.
beautiful. Beautiful. It's core. When somebody goes through something that is extremely painful, extremely traumatic, and they're feeling a deep sense of loss or heartache, whatever that is.
Yeah.
That having somebody tell you need to let go is so hurtful and triggering
and invalidating
and all the things, right?
Yeah.
And the sad part is that those people saying it, they're actually showing up. They're taking a chance. They're in our presence and they're speaking to us. They're trying, right? And so I talk about this a lot with hospitals and with, support centers or families of bereaved people, and that saying, I sat with this term for a long time to understand and unpack it. And what I think people are trying to say is that they love us too. They love, they love our child. In this example, they love our child, but they love us too. And they're afraid they're going to lose us too. And that they don't know how we're doing it, but they're proud that we're surviving. And they want to encourage us to keep taking steps forward, to be in the present.
What an empathetic view.
Thank you.
That's such a grounded, empathetic view. So an interesting note about that, I released an episode about toxic positivity. And so that's a phrase like, oh, you just need to let it go. And it's like, I'm going to throw you off a bridge. Another one, like I live in the Southeast US. Another one is like, well, God has a plan for everything, or they're in a better place now. And if I swear to God, if someone said that to me after I lost a child, I'd be like, there's no better place than with me. You can F off, right? Like 0% would I want someone to say that to me. But a lot of people are brought up, and like, especially down here, that's a cultural thing.
Yep.
And so when we're talking about holding space, we should also probably, I'm glad that you said that, talk about what not to say. So anything that's like, it's for the best, or God works in mysterious ways, or you should just let go, like maybe avoid those pieces.
And they're so programmed into us, right? That they're just become our uncomfortable go-to phrase, right? I'm sure I've said them before too, before I had this awareness, right? And you try to have that grace with people that, I mean, don't kid yourself. Like in my head, I'm thinking like, oh,
like, I will punch you in the face.
Like my eyes are rolling probably out of my brains that they're like watching, like, I just said something wrong, right? But I think so, especially in faith terms, I think there is a place to incorporate that, and if that is a part of your life and your journey, and often faith gets rattled by trauma and loss,
but it has to be our choice.
Yes, and like and saying it in a supportive way versus a package like, well, that was meant to be way, it's like, I'm here for you and so is God, or whatever the spirit or whatever source it is. But it's like I think there's like a friendly way, if you must bring in that path, to like say it as a supportive tool versus a like reason for the loss, right? Yeah.
Agreed. So you started the community, you are on boards for nonprofits. Can you tell us about what that work looks like? Because that's very cool.
Yeah. I recently last year stepped down from the board, but there's a pregnancy and infant loss support center in Calgary, Alberta, in Canada, where I'm from. And it's incredible. It's a physical space, which with COVID has obviously changed, but a really holistic and diverse healing and processing opportunity. So there's all sorts of different support groups going across all sort of different inclusivity topics that we really want. Loss happens to everyone. It doesn't care what color your skin is. It doesn't care what gender you are. It doesn't care what income you have or what part of the city you live in. It happens to everyone. And so that was a really beautiful thing to see that support kind of reaching out across the world in our area and online. And combining sort of like traditional coaching and counseling and mixing it with the Reiki and massage and reflexology and yoga, right?
I love that.
Yeah, beautiful. And then Polida is an organization mainly based in North America, in the US, and it's the Pregnancy, Loss, and Infant Death Alliance. And so I'm on the education committee for that. And really just, it's a great learning platform for myself, and
Mhm.
that showing up as a bereaved parent or an advocate. But it's really a medical driven organization. And
Hmm.
so getting to listen in to some of the experts across the US and
Yeah.
globally at their conferences and webinars and all specializing in perinatal loss. So, everything from creating memories to how to show up for parents when they're going through loss, to
Yeah.
difficult decisions, termination,
Mhm.
holding space after loss, what that looks
Mhm.
like, and support. Just mind blowing stuff. So, really excited to still be
Mm.
involved with that and participating and learning there all the time.
Now you have how many kids now?
I have 4 children, 2
Mhm.
Earth side and 2 on the other side. Our first pregnancy was lost as well at 12 weeks, and
Mm.
so I have Aiden and Lily here with us, and Aiden will be 12 this year, and Lily will be
Mm.
9.
What's it like being pregnant after you miscarry and or lose a child? I imagine that's a whole bundle of
Yeah,
emotions. What's that like?
scary.
Yeah.
It's scary for, a simple answer. And I think some good advice that I had once from a doctor was like, after the first miscarriage, I go in and I'm just like completely oblivious. I think just,
Mhm.
you get pregnant and it just happens, and, it's going to be beautiful. And I think I had like 5 friends at the time that were pregnant. We were all due
Mhm.
within a few months of each other, not really planned, just coincidentally,
Yeah.
right? At the stage of life. And then I lost my baby, and I was like, what? This isn't supposed to happen,
Mhm.
pregnant with Aiden, and really, terrified every scan, every month,
Sure.
every whatever. Um, am I going to lose this baby too? Right. And
Mhm.
so connection is a struggle, and is something that I think is really important to keep. You just keep at it, right? It's like practice.
Yes.
You feel what you're feeling on those days where you're scared or angry or unsure, like, yes, that's what you're feeling. Allow that
Mhm.
feeling to happen. And then you also have to bring back and have intention to connect with that pregnancy and to
Mhm.
connect with that baby. I know a lot of moms feel robbed in that after
Mhm.
pregnancy, after loss, and that it can take a long time to connect with that child in that pregnancy.
Yeah.
And then experiencing losing a child after birth, it
Mhm.
was like such a weird experience with Lily, because
Mhm.
now the whole pregnancy, I was like a bit worried and afraid. And like every time I had an ultrasound, it was like, what are they going to find now?
Yeah. Right.
Um, and then after I had her, that sort of like visceral fear shot through the roof of like,
Right.
is she breathing? Is she going to pass
Does she have a
away?
heart murmur? Are they going to find
Yes,
something?
all
Oh
the
gosh.
things, right?
Yeah.
Um, all I can suggest in those moments, and like what I've come to try, is like bringing yourself back into the moment,
Mhm.
right? I
How
try
do
to
you do
like,
that?
I call it my walk myself out of the corner.
Ooh,
Um,
you have such good analogies. Tell us about it.
thanks. I try to like let my irrational kind of like thoughts occur, and then I try to take steps back out of the corner. So breathing, easy one, right? Just like pausing and taking a breath and like feeling the breath or thinking
Mhm.
about the breath. Um, Another thing that I do is phone a friend, I call it, or
Mhm.
like talk to somebody, because I'm a
Yeah.
talker. So that works for me, maybe not for
Perfect.
everyone, but it's that like distraction that causes the gap, right? That
Mhm.
changes the thought pattern. So it's like
Yeah.
I can call my mom, a sister, a friend, talk to my partner, whoever, and say, um, I'm like so scared that I'm going to lose her, or whatever. And then we kind of like flush that out, right?
Mhm.
Another hack that I love is, this is like more recent. A decade ago, I didn't have Instagram. I barely texted, but
Yeah.
like, I save a lot of stuff to my phone. So pictures that I think are funny, quotes
That's a
that
good
I
one.
like.
Yeah.
Yes. Social media on like Instagram or whatever, I'll like save posts that I think are really
Mhm.
motivating. So when I'm kind of like falling into the hole, I
Yeah.
will like pull up something and like look at it just to
Yeah.
kind of and like shake
To
that
just
out. So those are just a
refocus.
few. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are a few things that I try to do.
So it sounds like something you experienced that I really want people to understand is that those things don't go away. They don't.
100%.
You never get to a point after you experience that kind of trauma or loss or grief where you never have those thoughts again. You never are triggered. You are never, having those emotions again. Like that's a lot of people think, believe, hope that they'll never have those things again. And it's just that's not real. You are going to be, I mean, it was 10 years ago. Even if you've healed, even if you've integrated that trauma into your life and have a perspective and have different skills, and I don't want to say move on, but like you integrate and you move forward. Yeah. They come up, and random things will trigger you because the brain works in spider webs. So it's not a linear, obviously like hospitals would probably be triggered. That makes a lot of sense. But sometimes it can be a smell or
100%.
Or something that it can be very seemingly random, but to your brain they're connected things. So how do you educate people that they're going to carry these things with them?
Mm-hmm.
And over time they get less intense and less frequent, but they're still going to happen. So how do you set that up, and what have you seen? Like you shared some things that you have success with. Like what are other people in your community, what do they do?
Mm-hmm. Triggers is such a huge one, right? And it's like, I love how you said that, because it really can come out of anywhere. And
and you're
this is something important to talk about and to share, because it isn't always talked about. And this is somewhere that I think society falls through the cracks. And one of the things I'm super passionate about, because when you're in the acute situation, so say if you're going into a loss, or you've just experienced a loss unplanned, or all of whatever the scenario is.
Sure.
In the medical environment, people are there supporting you as the parent or as the person going through something. But their job is to like fix you or fix the person in harm, right?
Acutely, like in the moment. And then it creates, so like to jump into that, I have a lot of shame around people who, and I'm going to put this in quotes, they should be over it by now.
Yes.
Because the medical community, one, doesn't explain these things at all. Hello. Which that's a whole separate issue. But like a lot of people think, given a year, 6 months, 2 years, 10 years, they should be over it by now. And then they have shame that they experience, that they're triggered. So yes, continue.
Yeah. And then some people might have access to or be able to seek professional support in counseling or psychiatry or psychology.
Right.
And those are great, important tools. Like I took advantage of some of those things, right? But what I found in that relationship as well was there was great space created, and I got to, share my story and share my pain and had a few strategies to help. But there was like no one saying to me, and I don't know whose job it would have been to say,
your job,
watch out, you're going to cry in the shower for months because it's quiet and it's silent, and your grief is going to just like explode out of you in those moments. Like no one tells you that. No one maybe even knows that, right? But it's like, that was friggin' scary. And like, I felt like, why am I always crying in the fucking shower? Like, why? I just want to like wash my hair and go somewhere and do something. And I'm just like falling apart all the time, right? And, reflecting on that too, I think there is that healing property of water, and water is emotional and it's like all the things, right? That makes sense. But it's like, no one tells you that. And I think triggers coming up over time. So to your first comment and question, I call it the carry with me stage. I call it the living in the joy and the pain stage. And that sort of I see as the last and constant, always evolving stage of life after loss. Is that we somehow, whether we have taken different paths of support or not, we do the best we can to navigate our lives and incorporate it into our lives. And we now live in both the joy and the pain. So the pain will
Talk
always
to
be
me.
there. Yes,
Yes.
the pain will always be there. It will always be under the surface. You will always have that loss or that missing or that wonder.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the, scale of trauma, there is some awful things
Mm-hmm.
that people experience that, can stay there very, very
Right.
deeply. Um, excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. Um, I think though that the joy is sometimes scary to come back, and it
Mm,
can come back, and it's a good thing if it comes back, right? And so comfortably settling into over time, and it's different for everybody, that
mm-hmm.
timeline and how it feels, but that you can laugh again, you
Mm-hmm.
can be silly again, you
Yep.
can have fun again, you can experience joy,
Yep.
and know that it's okay that 1 hour in my day, I'm laughing and having fun and being silly,
Mm-hmm.
and the next 5 minutes or hour or day, I might be crunched over in bed in the fetal position crying
Yeah.
because I just can't believe this happened to me, or I
Yeah.
can't believe how much I miss my son today, or whatever it is,
Right.
right?
So, you're just so good. You're so
You're
good.
too kind. You're too
No, you're
kind.
so good. Like, it's so good. What I want people to
I'm trying to move out of the
get.
sun here.
Oh yeah, you look great. I love the little fox picture behind you, by the way. If
Oh,
you guys are
thank
watching
you.
on YouTube, like it's adorbs. What I'm hearing and what I want to repeat so that people understand is like you're going to feel joy again. Also, you're going to feel pain. What I see is that if people run from pain, they run from joy. They
Mm,
are always, it's like in a romantic comedy where like the suspect like and the person are handcuffed together, like they're always handcuffed together. You
yes.
cannot have one without the other. If you cannot accept that you're going to be in pain sometimes, you will never experience joy again, bar none. That is a fact.
That makes
So
so much sense. I've never heard that. Thank you for saying that. That I'm
because
just like,
all emotions, yeah, all emotions are a spectrum. So but you only get the full spectrum. We can't pick and choose what we
right,
want. And through this
right.
process, I'm sure you've seen people try and pick and choose, but what
Yep,
happens is
yep,
all they do is run. If you're running from one, you run from everything forever, and you can never stop running because they're relentless and they catch up. So when
yeah,
people accept that they're in pain and it sucks and it hurts and you may feel like you're going to die and you can't handle it and
yep,
it's not fair and all of those things that come with it, once you can sit with that and say like, this isn't going away, but I can carry it. I don't have
yes,
to carry it all the time. I can put it down.
yep,
Then the joy comes. And they're
yep.
always together. So when I talk about this,
Oh,
I
that
think
makes
of
so
it
much
as
sense.
like um I say like people are carrying around like a huge bag of rocks and it's heavy and it's hard, but you're carrying it all the time because you don't know that you can put it down. But meanwhile, you're running, which is horrible. So you're trying to run with this huge bag, but
Mm,
when you just sit and you're like, oh, this bag sucks, like I better take some rocks out and deal with it, then it's like putting the bag on a wagon. So you're still carrying it with you, but now it has wheels. It's not as heavy. You don't have to
I love
carry it
that.
all the time. And like I want people to really get like you're going to be in pain. There are going to be days, just like you said, where it hits and it hits like a tsunami and you're drowning. But
Yep,
that's not every day. And if you're
yep,
constantly running from a tsunami, like that's not possible. So once you
yep,
just embrace that, like life is going to suck sometimes. It's going to hit you. You know better than I do how it feels. The people in your community know better than I do how it feels. But if you can sit through it or call a friend or save things on your phone or go for a walk like your husband does, do something that allows you to get through it, then the joy comes. And they're just always in pairs. Like
yep.
you can't
And
have one without the other.
I think too, the giving yourself the freedom and the permission to feel joy again. I've
Yeah. Oh,
witnessed
that's
so many, I
beautiful.
mean, I felt it at times,
Mhm.
absolutely too. I'm not, escaped from this, But I witnessed it really strongly in some of the bereaved parents I've worked with over the years, and that there's like a very strong apprehension to or avoidance of joy, because it's
Why?
like I'm scared if I pick up joy, I have to put down pain and loss. And if I put
Like
down
it's
pain and loss, I
like
just
it's a
severed my
betrayal.
last relationship with my
Yeah.
child, my last connection to them. But the truth is that you discover is there's no putting that down forever, right? Like,
Right.
and so you hold on to that. Like it just, yes, your analogy made so much sense. And I can see that. It's like
Yeah.
when you learn that you can pull it with you with support,
It's not
then you
going
can
anywhere.
let the joy back in. But you're so
Right.
afraid to put that bag down because you're afraid that that bag is like the last handle you have left on your child, right?
It's so powerful.
Yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that analogy. I think that's so beautiful. Yeah.
Please go ahead.
I was just gonna say something that was coming up was that, you know, if we don't deal with it in whatever way that looks like, right? If we bury it and bury it and bury it and bury it inside of ourselves, research, studies, everything shows us that like it can show up as physical pain in the body.
Oh yeah.
And
Physical
on
pain,
top of the
addiction,
emotional,
ruining
yes,
your own
all
life.
the things, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
So no one can do the work for you. It
Right.
is hard work, but it is work that if left undone, and that doesn't mean you have to do it on any specific timing. I share that with parents too, who are like, you know, I'm a decade out and I haven't done it and I'm horrible. And I'm like, no, when you're ready,
You weren't ready
you're
yet.
gonna do it.
Right.
You know? So I think that's just another thing to share, that there are ways to do it that work for you, that you just listen and lean into, and that you take chances on, because if you do pack it away, it shows up in places that usually aren't supportive.
Yeah. I always say you can't bury that body deep enough.
No.
Like, I
It
mean,
comes back.
you watched a murder show, right? Like,
Yeah.
it comes up. When it rains, it comes up. So you are, which is such a good segue. Like, this is just, I want to have like so many conversations with you.
I know, me too.
It's such a good segue though, because you provide a space for people to do this. So
Yes.
how do people find you? Tell us about what you offer. Please.
Awesome. So we have the community. It's free, it's online, and it's beautiful.
What's the
and
website?
I say that it is www.carryouwithmecommunity.com. So the simplest way to find anything that we're doing, and everything's all connected, is at carryouwithme.com. Just like it's like you would write it out, carryouwithme.com. And from there, there's a button. You just click community. That'll take you right to the community page. There's a button to the program that'll take you to more information about the program. We also have it built out in chunks, so you can find, if you're a bereaved parent, let me help you get to the content and the resources that'll be most helpful for you. If you are a support person, if you are a loved one of somebody, if your sister, if your favorite barista, if your son, if your neighbor is going through this, here's a page to help you direct where you could support them. And if you're a healthcare professional and want to learn more and add to your practice, here's some of the ways you can support your clients. The community, like I said, is free. It's online. We just moved, and why I say it's so beautiful, we just moved off Facebook in November. So it took a huge risk going to a platform outside of that. It's got its own app, easy to use. But why I say it's beautiful is because it allows for deeper connection. So we can connect as members across time and space. There's the ability to do all the same things of like sharing stories and member spotlights and community, hosting online events. We do a theme every month that we dig into. So there's some learning components. We call it express yourself, because one thing I want to just share is important to me about the community and the members, I think, is that it's not just a pit to climb into. So there's lots of different things out there, and we all need different things at different times. But what the Carry You With Me community is about acknowledging the pain and being true to it and sharing those things. But it's also about inspiration and light, that we can have joy again, that we can, find our passion again, find inspiration again, and then say, this week was really hard because of that, or I'm having my child's birthday coming up. I don't know what to do,
Yeah.
or I'm new
So
to
really
loss.
like collaborate
Yes.
and not compare. Like you're not comparing your
No.
pain. You're just saying like, me too, but also I don't know what to do, with a whole community of people who have been through it.
Yeah.
How valuable.
And then the program, which is really exciting, just launched at the beginning of February. It's something I've been working on for the last 14 months and
Oh my
really
gosh.
learning the last decade of my life. It's incredible. It's also built as a course online that
Dude,
is in your
congrats.
own time, in your own space, in your own way.
Love
That there's, again, all different approaches out there. But what I wanted, what I went back to and felt like would have been the most supportive for me when I lost Marshall. What did I want? What were all the questions that I was having and fears that I had? And so putting that together, because what I found was every time somebody would join the community, or I would talk to somebody, over coffee or whatever it was at an event, it was like, open the floodgates, like our conversation today. We could talk for hours and hours and hours, right?
You're like,
and it's like,
come back.
yes, absolutely. Thank you. But it was like, I had so much to say, but how do you package that? How do you share that with people in a repeatable way so that this person is getting sliver 1 and this person is getting sliver 2 or whatever it is? And so the program,
it is a process. Like there's a cadence and there's a rhythm to the information and how people process in the stages they go through and the questions they have. Like, yes.
And so the program was built. Each module stands alone. There is, I love the word though, like you said, cadence to it, right? Like there is some building, but you can just go into any piece of it that calls to you, and then you can go back to a different one, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a combination of many, many short videos, exercises, worksheets, bonus materials. We've got everything from coloring pages to aromatherapy, and then really digging in on some of these topics about support, about isolation, about triggers, about physical pain. Dr. Deborah Davis, the writer of Empty Cradle, Broken Heart, and she shared a lot of her knowledge. She's a developmental psychologist working in this space for almost 30 years, does training all around the world. She gave us content and edited module 2 on physical pain and trauma to the brain. And so there's just so much packed into this.
So good.
And I love the idea that people could do it when they want it, right? So it's not we sit down every week and go through a module or go through a program. It's literally, you could be 15 years out and open up this and then that, or you could be 1 week out and you could stay at this section or this video, or something happens 3 years down the road and this situation occurs, you can go back to this and reflect on it.
Because these things come in cycles too. So it's kind of like, like those old school towers where it's like a spiral staircase, like a Rapunzel tower, right? So a lot of people feel like they're going in circles, but it's because they're only looking from the top. And so all they see is the circle, but they're not realizing that every time they circle around, they're another floor up, or they're 2 or 3 floors up. So even though it's a similar circumstance or a similar feeling, like we don't heal in a linear fashion. We heal in a spiral. And so your program, like your course, allows people to go through that spiral, but every time they're a floor up, they have more experience, they have more knowledge, they have more resiliency, they have more skills. And so at each level, that material is going to be helpful in a different way. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Because you'll hear something different at those points, right?
Right.
I've had people messaging me who are going through it now and saying, oh my God, I wish I would have had this 4 years ago, because it would have saved the relationship with my mom. I didn't know what she was saying and it just hurt me. And now hearing your reflection on it and having me work through it, I'm like, oh, or having another couple is doing it online together. Her husband just happened to walk by once when she was watching one of the modules and was like, oh, what is this? He ended up loving it because it was like an accessible way to validate what he was feeling. And he's even been sharing notes to me of saying like, this is amazing. They're not even writing out the worksheets, but they're just talking about them. They pull up the worksheet, and as a couple, they're talking about it, and it's creating this like beautiful time they call parenting their child. So yeah, it's pretty special.
That's so sweet.
And then we do have a monthly Zoom call check-in. So although you don't, and it's cool. We're having one of our first ones tonight, actually. Yeah, it's exciting. Thank you. And I was saying to people, even if you haven't watched one video yet, or you haven't done one exercise, this is just our monthly check-in to ask any questions about it, to hear about other people going through it, that they can share their insights, they can share things they disagree with, they can share ways that they would describe that situation differently, or tips that they have. So I think it's just going to evolve and grow really beautifully from here, and I'm excited for it.
For you.
Thank you.
I love this for you, and I love this for the people who are going to be joining, because it's so like, that's so life-changing, because not everybody has access to therapy or wants to go. And this is just it's so good. I like love it.
And I think there's so many tools that you can apply to any aspect of life, right? So if you're doing a communication worksheet and working through the communication and language videos, like some of the things we just talked about now, right? And letting go and some of those things, those can apply to any aspect of your life, right?
True.
And so I think there's lots of little nuggets that people can pull into different areas of their life. And, yeah, thank you for having me share about that and opening the dialogue around these topics, because I think the more people talk about this stuff, and like you mentioned in the beginning, right, it just releases some of that shame. It releases some of the fears and stigma.
And it releases the isolation, like, because other people have gone through it, and it's so much more common than people know. So much more common.
So interesting fact on that is there is roughly, give or take, depending on the year, if we look at the last decade, in the US alone, about 1 million losses a year. Pregnancy losses a year.
Right.
Does that not blow your mind? That there's over 24,000 babies born still in the US every year.
Wow. Yeah.
That's not even
so many
counting
more than
illness, accident, you know, all of the things that can happen in life. And so when people say this is niche, this is not niche. 1 in 4 is not niche. 1 in 4 pregnancies lost is not niche. And, you know, I think you or somebody you know in your lifetime will experience a loss like this. And so how do we all help each other and be there for each other through that?
Oh yeah, it's so good. So remind us again how we find you. Give us your Instagram handle and your website, and go, people, check her out. Like,
thank you. Thank you, Amanda. It is on Instagram. We love Instagram. It is carryu.withme. So Carrie, YOU.withme. And on Facebook, Carry You With Me, you can find us on there. And then at www.carryyouwithme.com.
So good. It's just so good.
Thank you, my dear.
Dude,
I love you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.